the ball rolling statewide. We spent time in the state legislature. We kept getting vetoed, so we decided, radically, if you will, to try and put it on the ballot. We didn't have any money. We had a coalition of sick people, and we needed something like 650,000 ballot signatures in the state. We didn't know how we were going to do it, but we knew it was the right thing to do. The time was right. Enough people had died. More were going to die if we didn't do it. And we're getting nothing but bullshit out of the federal government, the FDA, NIDA, and the rest of them. So we drafted language. We filed it to the Secretary of State at the end of September 1995. We started gathering signatures on World AIDS Day, which was December 1st, 95. And, by the end of the first month, it was clear we weren't going to make it. Been around long enough to know what a good signature flow and what a bad signature flow looked like. And it was raining that winter, and we were having a tough time that people in wheelchairs in the rain collecting signatures on a marijuana petition. 2 weeks into the campaign, I got a call from Bill Zimmerman, Southern California political consultant, who I ironically worked with in the early 80s on the state nuclear weapons freeze campaign. He's a media buyer, a local commercial man, and connected with a variety of organizations that collect signatures from unpaid signature gatherers. He called and he said, these legal reform movement financiers, the same ones, Peter Lewis, George Soros, Ethan Nadelman, they're financing the AUMA, had contacted him about doing a professional signature gathering campaign for Prop 215. And we had been trying to convince these same financiers for months to back our efforts to get this on the ballot. And they kept refusing. But Zimmerman said they called him and asked him, would he be willing to get involved? Jack's, the California Hemp and Health Initiative was already circulating for several months by the time we started gathering 215. And ultimately Jack pulled that so he could have all his people concentrate on 215. And so much we're very grateful for that. And had some deep conversations with Jack about why we thought that was the appropriate thing to do and urged him to do it. And we're grateful that he did. The money came in ultimately. As of February, the professional signature gatherers came on board, and that money and those people are the reason that Prop 215 got on the ballot, not because we were all that great, that organized, or had such a movement that we couldn't be stopped. It's why the AUMA got twice as many signatures as they were legally required to get, because they were paying big bounties to get those signatures. And there's an endless supply of money when you throw Monsanto and Bayer and George Soros, who already apparently legalized marijuana in, Ecuador? Uruguay, so we can corner that market. There's a lot of money being thrown at the AUMA. Trying to speed up a little, the MMRSA came 19 years too late, basically. Proposition 215 directed the legislature to provide for a safe and affordable system of prescriptive access for those individuals who were not able to cultivate for themselves or have a local cooperative effort that they could join into. For me, this is the most important point about MMRSA, MRSA, the AUMA, and Prop 215. Traditionally, the federal government has claimed sole ownership of marijuana. You couldn't touch marijuana. They own it. You couldn't have seeds. You couldn't grow it. You couldn't possess it. You couldn't use it because the federal government owned it. And they denied it to the people that needed it the most. In 1996, with Prop 215, the voters in California said, we reject your unilateral federal claim on ownership of marijuana. We have patients who are sick, who are dying who need this, and we're authorizing them to own marijuana for their own use, for their own health and wellness. And I think that's a point that we have to keep in mind, because what all these initiatives, or all these AUMA and the MRSA are about, is dispossessing the people authorized by 215 to own, nurture, grow, harvest, process, possess, and use cannabis, to dispossess us of that right. And they can only do that if we allow them to dispossess us of the right. Because a lot of these things in here, because Prop 215 was passed by the voters, its basic rights and its basic premise can only be changed by the voters. MRSA was not passed by the voters. And has numerous provisions in it that are unconstitutional because the voters have not approved them. I think that the strongest indication of this notion of dispossession is in MRSA's provision that bans patient-owned, vertically integrated, cooperative cultivation projects. Now, I noticed in the paper that you have that you reference the limitations that are mentioned in there, but it comes up a little short of what I read in the MRSA text, which is that if you're already set up, you're already going, and you already got your license from your local, you can operate your cooperative for 10 years, and then you're out of business in anything. If you don't have it all set up and going now, and by the date that they included in MRSA, which was sometime last summer, you can't do a cooperative. MRSA effectively bans the use of patient-owned cooperative cultivation projects that follow the medicine from seed to smoke, where the operations are owned and operated by those who are authorized by 215 to do so, patients and their designated caregivers. And they take that out. They attempt to ban that through the repeal of section 11362.775, which is the cooperative collective cultivation language. Well, I wrote that language in 11362.775 because on the SB 420 language drafting committee, there were 7 of us, and they left that to me since I basically represented the providers and the patients on that drafting committee. And in the course of passing it, other issues came up. Prop 215 had 11362 or 57 and 58 cultivation and possession, which are 2 statutes we specifically named. But immediately, the other ones we didn't name: transportation, providing, giving, sales, possession for sale. All these other statutes were kind of floating out there that we hadn't addressed in Prop 215. And so the legislature added, I think, 7 additional statutes to the language of 11362.775. That's the only thing that, those additions are the only thing that are outside of what's explicit in Proposition 215. And because they added those, and they don't have the same voter protection that possession and cultivation do, although there are court decisions that affirm that these rights have to be, these other statutes have to be considered and allowed, or you can't, basically grow the marijuana and walk it down the hallway to the patient, and, you're guilty of transportation. So the court ruled out those kind of absurd applications of those other statutes. But they make that provision repealable by the legislature if they want to repeal it, because those weren't in Prop 215. Now, they can't really repeal the right of possession and cultivation, but it's all part of this plan to dispossess the patients of these rights. And that's where I think the core problem is. And, MMRSA was, like I said, it's 19 years too late. 215 said, we call on the legislature to set up this alternative to folks who can't grow for themselves. And the legislature did nothing. A lot of police did their best to undermine Prop 215's implementation. A lot of our friends in the movement did their best to exploit Proposition 215 and its implementation. And I say that with an open heart, but with all candor and honesty, that some of the very same people who objected to us carving the medical issue out of the broader legalization scope and didn't really support medical marijuana as a separate issue to fight over on its own merits. And we're suddenly there ready to hang their shingles on the front of the storefront the minute it passed. And how it went up here, but I can tell you in Los Angeles it was utter chaos. We were the center that we set up after Prop 15, which we coordinated with the Sheriff's Department. The Sheriff was basically providing security for the Cannabis Center in Los Angeles, the first one. We grew our marijuana there on site in 12,000 square foot commercial building. The city of West Hollywood helped us purchase. The AIDS, all the major AIDS healthcare organizations, and over 400 doctors participated in the program. The Neuropsychiatric Institute at UCLA did a 2-year study of our membership base. The National Academy of Sciences Institute of Medicine, when they did their Clinton administration ordered report, they came and gathered data at the center in West Hollywood. We were open for 5 years, until 6 weeks after 9/11, when I guess Bush and Ashcroft didn't have anything better to work on. The DEA came in and raided our center and closed it. And 1,900 people we get certified over the 5-year period we were open as qualified. We had succeeded in completely getting off the illicit market for our supplies. It was all coming from either what we grew there at the center in West Hollywood, or Lynn and Judy Osborne, who were members of our center, lived in Ventura on a 60-acre property. They grew about 40% of what our members consumed. The other 60% was grown there in the facility in West Hollywood. So we brought Prop 215 alive. There's a lot of complaints about 215, about the language. It was too loosely written, that there were no guidelines or details for how it should be implemented. Dianne Feinstein said, just before the election, you had holes in this language that you could drive a truck through. And what people didn't understand is we weren't trying to validate an industry. We weren't trying to create an industry. We were trying to protect the lives and the freedom of people who are dying of AIDS and cancer and multiple sclerosis, our family members, our friends. And it wasn't about empowering some group of growers that we only barely knew, whose prices most of us as patients on disability or Social Security found were too high anyway. I mean, there were a lot of reasons we did Proposition 215, and mostly to escape the risk, cost, and indignities of acquiring life-saving medicine in the face of a life-threatening disease and illicit market. And we needed a way out of that, and Prop 215 was our way out of that. We said to voters, look, we're in this bind. You know the bind. You see it on TV, you watch us go through this, you watch us get busted, you watch our homes be destroyed, you watch our children be taken away, and you watch us die without the medicine that we need. Because the government's too busy enforcing an 80-year-old lie that was born around medical use. The 1937 Tax Act was an attack on the medical use of marijuana, out of which general prohibition grew. So, at the heart of marijuana prohibition is the medical use issue for the last 80 years. And they've been satisfied, and unfortunately, they've known all along that marijuana will help you if you're sick. They've known all along that kids with these catastrophic epilepsy conditions who die by the time they're 8 years old, 300 seizures a day, their bodies can't take it. And cannabis is saving their lives. And a lot of the applications that we're seeing now in the news and on YouTube wouldn't have happened if Proposition 215 not been along. And we never asked permission from the government to take care of ourselves or to take care of those we love. We went and did it. And kind of let them figure we wrote what bill we thought we needed to protect ourselves in court. But 215 was a medical defense. It was basically, we were in court time and time again, and the judges were largely sympathetic when a patient would come in. And they would listen to their stories, and they would say, I understand. And no, I don't think you're a criminal. There's nothing in the statutes in California that says marijuana is a medicine. In fact, the Controlled Substances Schedule says it's not. And so you need to go put something in the statutes that says marijuana is medicine, so that we have the flexibility to cut you some slack. And that's what we wanted. We just wanted to get on with healing ourselves, taking care of ourselves, living our lives as best we could under very difficult circumstances. And we were lucky in Los Angeles that we had a sheriff who we had kind of banged head with before the 215 actually passed. And we had had our little cannabis club going while we were collecting signatures. You know, the old days we just everybody pooled their pennies. Whoever had the best connection went and bought the bag, and we divvied it up amongst ourselves. That's how it worked when we just kind of natural and emerging. We needed a better system than that certainly once people started coming forward, lots of people. And we were lucky that law enforcement, the medical community, city of West Hollywood, and the patients and their doctors were willing to come together and craft a program after 215 passed. And that program was the Los Angeles Cannabis Resource Center, which was the first collective cultivation project, patient-based collective cultivation project in Southern California. We were open for 5 years, like I said, until 6 weeks after 9/11, and they came and closed us. And, you know, a lot of people say, oh, we'll just go open quietly, you know, just go back to it. But when you come out of the shadows, after fighting the shame and the guilt and the law and the penalties that are dropped on you for years and years, decades and decades, telling you that somehow, because you need this plant, you're somehow less than everybody else. You're somehow guilty of a botanical evil for going to this place. And we couldn't, I as the director and founder, couldn't take us back to that place again. After coming out of it, after growing our own, after getting off the black market, after speaking our truths publicly, there was no way we could go back to sneaking around in the shadows, and we weren't going to do it. And so we were charged, eventually we were charged. At the same time we were busted and got charged with felonies in federal court. I was diagnosed with stage 3B lung cancer, which is terminal inoperable lung cancer. So I was fighting the federal prosecution and lung cancer at the same time. And miracle of miracles, I beat the cancer, and when we went to court, we did, I and 2 other officers of the cooperative, the plant manager, who was our chief grower, and our business manager, who paid all the bills, kept the lights on. We all pled guilty to a single charge, federal charge of maintaining the place. So this is a federal crack house law. Maintaining a place where drugs are manufactured and distributed illicitly. And we were offered that or to go to trial on 5 charges, including money laundering and RICO conspiracy and all the other things that we wouldn't have been allowed to raise a defense around. Because, you know, the Supreme Court of Darby ruled that in May of 2001 that medical necessity was not applicable in the Oakland Cannabis Virus case that went to the Supreme Court. The only nuance there was that the Oakland Cannabis Virus Club, or Virus Cooperative, was a third-party operation. Jeff Jones wasn't a patient himself. He was a third party. And Proposition 215 was about first and second parties, patients and their designated caregivers, which when we wrote it was family members, the people that are day-to-day involved in your life taking care of it. And the Oakland Club, and this is why we didn't close when the Oakland decision came out of the Supreme Court, was we were first and second parties, and the Oakland operation was the third party. That was the case they argued, and in one of the notes in the decision, we even noted that Oakland Cannabis is claiming necessity because it's not a necessity for them. They're a third-party supplier. And so we went to court. Ultimately, we got 1 year probation. The judge was absolutely supportive. He was a Clinton appointee. He was awesome. He went through hundreds of pages of exhibits that we presented. He listened politely to 3 dozen letters that were written from top politicians and law enforcement people and supporters throughout the state, including one from my husband, George Letty. Let me tell you, you can't accomplish anything in this world without people in your family who are next to you, standing by you, and the laws kept passing after the 37 Tax Act. It made it worse and worse and worse. From the controlled substances schedule in the 70s to Bill Clinton's 94 crime bill, which put thousands of our neighbors in prison when their only crime was, accessing pot or other illicit drugs. They're basically non-violent people. We built a huge for-profit prison industry and have the largest prison population in the world because of the drug war, because of the marijuana war. In some ways, we're as actors in this ongoing drama, we have a huge responsibility. And I was glad that, we and the people I work with in Los Angeles recognized that responsibility early, because it made us, we tried to turn traditional adversaries into uncommon allies. We did it with the law enforcement in LA by making them our friends and helpers and putting together a program that met the public need without compromising public safety. That by enhancing it. And we have, I tried to mention earlier that the complaint about Proposition 215 was all the things it didn't do in order to facilitate legal marijuana that everybody really wants. A lot of the public believes in, because everybody's sick of the drug war. I mean, it's been a moral, bankrupt failure. And it hasn't stopped a single person from using a drug that they're committed to use. And it's cost billions and billions of dollars. And, really hurt our country in the long run. And build a dozen new prisons, not a single new university or and pass millions of Americans to this marginalized spot where economically marginalized, socially marginalized, politically marginalized have to lose their vote and never vote again. And these things were done deliberately. They were done on purpose. And so when we see these kind of bills come along, which the 19-year late MRSA, the only reason they did MRSA was because everybody saw after Colorado and Washington legalized for recreational use, they saw the billions coming in tax revenue, and everybody wants a piece of that. Everybody, there's this great big kind of corporate financial wet dream going on in America. We got .com millionaires who have to do something with their money. So here I'm going to start a marijuana business. And the legislature was asleep at the wheel on medical marijuana and fulfilling the mandate that the voters had given them back in '96 to set up an alternative system. Yet they wanted in on the recreational legalization and the chances for all that tax revenue. And so that's when they kind of banged out MRSA from 4 or 5 or 6 different bills that had been rejected over the previous 19 years. And they grabbed the worst parts of it. They took the heart of what was accomplished with 215, which was giving marijuana to people, their possession, their use, their ownership, and cracking provisions that dispossess the people of what the voters granted in 1996. And then the AUMA is the second piece of it. It comes along and tries to provide, the heart of the AUMA is providing a backdoor voter affirmation for the license to seek MRSA that are attempting to undermine the rights that we won in 215. And, there's only one way to keep this from happening. And that's, as odd as it sounds, is to refuse to let it happen. I don't think that AUMA might not pass. AUMA will not pass. Because we're not going to get these rights back again. They take them this time. We don't give them that. Monsanto can't own cannabis if the people own cannabis. And so we have to go back to the strategy of necessity means you have to. It means not optional. We don't have a choice here. And we have to go back to that fundamental premise here at this late date of 215's repeal is not optional. And it's not going to happen. And it's not necessary. And it's not right. You know, the AUMA is the wrong answer to the wrong question by the wrong people for the wrong reasons. And it's bad for California, it's bad for the young people who aren't 21, who take an inordinate hit in penalties under AUMA. It's going to be worse for young people than it is now. The provision to legalization is just bullshit. You know what I say? It's bullshit. It's a lie. And it's a lie that's based on not acknowledging the 80-year-old lie on which all this is based. You can't get to legalization by maintaining the drug war effort. This is like, doing private contractors for the Iraq war. You know, oh, we were wrong to pass the war resolution against Iraq back when, Hillary voted for it or whatever. It was the wrong thing to do to pass that. Iraq didn't have anything to do with 9/11. But we passed and we waged a war on them. And then we decided, oh, well, like I said, it was the wrong thing to do. But here, we're going to keep waging the war on you. We're going to give it to Blackwater and Halliburton, and we're going to let them do it. We're still going to send you the invoice every month to pay for it. And that's what these bills are. They're a continuation of the drug war, handed off to a new hot police force, reconfigured under civil penalties that are all about money. We're getting everybody locked in that trap of, always having a fine you can't afford to pay, which sends up the fine to a higher level that you can't afford to pay. And, it locks everybody into the same structure. And until people are willing to acknowledge that 37 tax act was wrong, that the drug war and the marijuana war were wrong, that they were in fact criminal negligence in promoting those policies that cost people their lives and cost money to their freedom and their ability to maneuver in life. And so, I don't know what's, I don't have any great strategies, great secrets. I only know what we went through to get this far. And I gotta tell you, when after my sentencing, a 1-year probation, a $100 fine, and $100 in community service, I went to seminary and became a licensed local pastor in the United Methodist Church, which I did for the last 10 years, because I wasn't in a position that I could challenge my federal conviction